Hello, museum friends. This is Gayla Keesee at the Augusta Museum of History, and today is a very special day. Today, we are going to talk about the Native Americans and the indigenous peoples that came and lived here in the Augusta area. Now, what is a Native American? Does anybody know? Oh, a Native Americans are those people who lived here a long, long, long time ago. And they lived in this area, and they came and they lived very differently from how we live today. In fact, the Muskogee people were the people who lived in the area around Augusta. Now, a little further north, around Atlanta, they had the Cherokee people. And so the Muskogee people and the Cherokee people were the ones who were here when, a long time ago, the people came over from Spain and from England, and they came to settle here and to grow. Now, what I want to do is talk about how the Native Americans lived and show you some of the pieces that are in our collection that you can come see at the museum. Now, one of the things that is very different, how many of you have been camping? Well, when you go camping, a lot of times we have a fire and it's in a fire pit. We don't live in a house, do we? And we might be in a tent, or sometimes we are just in a sleeping bag. Okay, there are different ways to go camping. Well, if you think about camping, that's how the Native Americans sort of lived. They lived in thatched huts or things that were made from nature, okay? And they may not have slept on a bed. What they did a lot of times is they used things from when they hunted. And so one of the things they did that they might use was, this is a deer skin. This is if they killed the deer so that they could eat the meat like we do cows and like we do pigs and things. They went hunting, and what they did was they saved the fur off of that deer, and they would use that to sleep on, and sometimes they would use it to cover up, and they would make clothing and things that they would use, because they used all of that to help them when they went. All right. Another thing, in order to hunt that deer, they didn't have guns. They didn't have things. They had bows and arrows, and they had spears. And what they would do, and here is a spear. What do you think that's made out of? What do you think? Yeah, stone. Right. It's made out of rock. And what they did was, this started out maybe as a big rock like this. And what they would do is they would chip it away until they had this. See the roughness right there? Okay. And this part right here would attach to the arrow or to the spear, so that they could throw it, or so that they could use the bow and arrow. Okay, here's another one that I wanted to show you. See, they come in different sizes, depending on how they needed to use them. So this is the piece, then they would wrap it around so that it would work, and see how sharp it is. Here's another one. This one's sort of broken off, but you can tell how it was used. Okay, and it's got that point. I've got another one, see, a different one, but it still has that so that they could wrap it and attach it to whatever they were going to use to throw it, or for the arrow. Okay. Now, another thing that they did was they used gourds. Now, this would have a big neck on it, and they would cut it off. And doesn't that make a great cup or something to hold liquid with? See it inside? Yeah. And so they would use gourds so that they would carry liquids, and they could drink water out of that, or they could carry liquid from the river or something so that they could cook with it. Now, you can't cook with this. This would, you couldn't put this on the fire because this is like wood and it would just burn up. So this would be something they would have to use to drink or something like that. They couldn't use this to cook with. Now, as far as cooking, one of the things that they had was these things called boiling stones. Okay, see this? Now, something's very interesting is they've got a hole in them, right? All right, what they would do is they would heat these up and they would put them in the water, and these would be hot, so that way they could put them in the water and it would heat up the water. Well, how did you get the stone out? Well, they would get a stick and they would put it through the hole, and they would lift out that stone from the water after they had gotten it hot. Okay, so these are some of the things that the peoples that lived here in the Augusta area and the surrounding area used to use a long, long time ago. Okay, and what do you think about using deer for a blanket? Using that deer skin for a blanket? Do you think that would keep you warm? Yeah, it might. Yeah. They dressed differently than we did, didn't they? Because they didn't have sewing machines and things like that we do. Now, one of the things that I want to show you, that instead of sneakers or tennis shoes that we use, is one of the things they put on their feet were called moccasins. And see these moccasins? All right. And they would use pieces of the deer to use as the thread to sew it together. And they would do that. And so here, and then they would also use pieces of leather that they used from fitting with the animal, and that would be their shoelaces. How about that? All right. Do you think that would stay tied? Do you think you could tie that one and keep it tied? No, probably not. It would be hard to do that, right? Yeah. So we'd have to do that and tie it a lot so that it wouldn't fall apart, so they wouldn't come off our shoes, right? All right. That is some of the things that the Native Americans in this area used when they were living. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is we have a special guest, Mr. Duran, and he is going to read a story for us that was written by a Cherokee woman. One of the things that happened is the Cherokees didn't stay here. They were forced to move, and they moved out west, and the Cherokee Nation is out in Oklahoma now. And this woman is the author of this book. Is the name of the book is The Apple Tree, and it talks about a young man or a young boy who plants an apple seed. And it talks about his relationship with that apple seed and that apple tree as it grew. Because one of the things that was really important to the Native Americans is nature and taking care of nature. And we want to make sure that that's something that we think about, especially during Native American History Month, as well as coming up, we've got Thanksgiving, don't we? So there are a number of things that we can be thankful for. And part of that is nature and the the food and the plenty that we get from nature. And Native Americans would be appreciative of that. And so that's what we are going to be talking about next.
Hello, friends. My name is Mr. Duran, and I'm your school's Native American Community Specialist. I will be bringing you a new story each month for us to read together and enjoy. Hey, who here likes apples? Me too. And it's apple season here in Missoula. There is nothing better than a freshly picked apple. They're so crunchy and sweet and also healthy. Today, we will be reading The Apple Tree. The author's name is Sandy Tharphy. What does the author do again? Right, she's the writer. The illustrator's name is Marlena Campbell Hodson. What does the illustrator do? Of course, she's the artist that creates the pictures for us to enjoy. Let's meet the author. Sandy Tharphy is the granddaughter of sharecroppers and survivors of the Cherokee Trail of Tears. They're elders who taught her parents, who then taught her to be strong and to laugh. She is an enrolled member of the Cherokee Nation. Right here is a tiny picture of the Cherokee Nation's flag. As a tribal librarian, she earned a White House Champion of Change Award in 2013 for her work advancing literacy and helping to preserve tribal culture and history. Sandy Tharphy is the mother of a son who still helps her collect autumn leaves and listens to her stories and songs. I love collecting the big red and orange maple leaves. How about you? The apple tree was inspired by her son's love of nature, especially plants and seeds. The apple tree is very special because it is a bilingual book. Bilingual means speaking two languages fluently. Notice that each page is written in both the Cherokee and English language. Think about this. There are 574 tribes in the United States. Every tribe has their own unique language, culture, and government. Every tribe contributes to modern America in their own way. Cherokee Nation is one of hundreds of tribes with their own beautiful and special culture. Here's a chart from the book with all the Cherokee letters and sounds. As we read, see if you can spot the sentences written in Cherokee. The Apple Tree, written by Sandy Tharphy. Illustrations by Marlena Campbell Hodson. One day, a little Cherokee boy planted a seed in his backyard. The boy watered the seed and kept the weeds away. One morning, a seedling appeared. The little boy said, "Look at you! Once you were just a seed, now you are an apple tree." He put a sign around the tree so no one would step on it. In no time at all, the seedling grew branches and more leaves. The boy was so proud. "Look at you! Once you were just a seed. Now you are an apple tree. You are beautiful." The little tree really was not so beautiful, but because the little boy loved the tree so much, the tree felt beautiful. Still, a few days later, the boy found the little apple tree sad and droopy. "What's wrong, little tree?" the boy asked. "What good is an apple tree that makes no apples?" asked the little tree. The boy replied, "When we are big, we will both be able to do lots of things." Yet, as he walked away, he saw the tree still looked sad. That night, as the tree slept, the boy tied a big red apple on a branch of the little tree. The next morning, the boy went to check on his friend. "Look at you! You have a big red apple," he said. The little apple tree said, "You have cared for me and loved me. I would like you to have my first apple." "Thank you," said the boy. And he took a great big bite. "Delicious," said the boy. As the seasons passed, the boy and the apple tree grew. They both grew tall and strong. Once again, the boy went to the tree. "Look at you, once just a tiny seed. Now you are an apple tree. You are beautiful." The apple tree was beautiful. Pink blossoms covered it from tip to toe. Pink blossoms covered it from tip to top. Butterflies, birds, and honeybees came to visit. And when the pink blossoms fell off, yellow apples took their place. So many yellow apples, the branches bowed from the weight. Once again, the boy said to the tree, "Look at you. You were once just a seed. Now you are a big apple tree." The apple tree replied, "Yes, I am a big apple tree now, and these yellow apples are very grand. But I will never forget my first apple, the one the Creator made red." Just to show how much I am loved. What a great story. I want to show that last page again. Remember we talked about here is the English words, just to show how much I am loved. And here is the same words in the Cherokee language. That is a great story, and I think it's perfect for this time of year. There's lots of people out there who have cared all summer for their apple trees, and now the apple tree is giving thanks to them by helping them get some food. So remember that all your kind actions, they will come back to you. And remember to, in this story, the boy sees the tree as his friend and he is kind to it. So please go out there and be kind to all things living, plants and animals, and of course, all your friends and family. Thank you so much for listening.
All right, now it's time for our craft. And just like we have been talking about apples, one of the things we're going to do today is we're going to use apples to make stamps and to paint with apples. So our craft today is apple stamping. Now, we need to have all these materials ready. We need to have apples. Now, those apples can be red, they can be green, they can be yellow, all sorts of different kinds of apples. And we need to have cardstock or thick paper because the paint, we don't want it to soak through. We need a cutting board so that we can cut those apples in half. And I like to have a fork or a popsicle stick, and I'll tell you why later. We need a knife so that we can cut the apples, and we can do paintbrushes or Q-tips if you want to add leaves or add seeds to your apple print. We need a paper plate or a pie pan, and we need a paint that we can wash out. So tempera paint, we can use red, green, black, whatever colors you would like. All right, now that we have everything, we need to cut a fresh apple in half. Now, I recommend that parents do this before the little ones join in. That way you don't have to worry about it. But one of the things that you might do is experiment with cutting it long ways, like we usually think of cutting an apple, or cut it through the middle and talk about how you see a star inside the apple. And you might show them that just like human beings and everyone around us, they may have different looks and all of that, but inside, you're all special, just like this apple. You would never know that there was a star there unless you cut it sideways. All right, next. All right, whoops, I don't want to go there. It went too far. All right, so next, after we get it cut, you're going to have a fork, or I like to cut a popsicle stick in the back of the apple, because that way it makes it easier to stamp. And little kids, because sometimes the paint will stick and make it hard to pick up the apple when you put it on the plate. So we're going to pour some paint. Don't pour a whole lot because it'll get all over the apple. So pour just a little bit to begin with and put it on a plate or a pie pan so that we can dip the apple in it. Once again, it keeps going too far. All right, once we do the pie pan, then we're going to go step 5. We're going to press the apple. Okay, so we're going to put it into the paint. And once that apple has got all the paint on it and it's completely covered, we're going to lift it up. Okay, and this is where that popsicle stick or fork come in handy. And we're going to put it down on the paper and then lift it up very gently and see what beautiful prints are left behind. So you can wipe off the excess paint, and then you can repeat the process as many times as you want with different colors or different apples. So you've got all sorts of different things that you can do. So this is one of the things that I like to do afterwards is, like I said, use a Q-tip or a brush and make the apple seeds in the middle. or paint a leaf on it. There are different ways that you can do this. Instead of putting it on paper, you might put it on a brown paper bag and make it so that you can carry it that way. This is also a perfect time for making wrapping paper. So there are a whole bunch of different ways to use these stamps and not just have them as pretty stamps. So thank you so much for joining me today. I am Miss Gayla, and I invite you to come back with us next month. Next month, we're going to have a whole series of Monday at the Museum. We're going to be celebrating Hanukkah with a special guest. That special guest is my daughter. She's going to come in and she's going to talk about Hanukkah. We're going to read a Hanukkah story and we're going to do a craft. And then we're also going to, later in the month, we have our own special Christmas elf. Her name is Ginger. And Ginger will be with us all through the month of December. And I'm going to be reading the story about Ginger. And we're going to do the elf on the shelf. And we're going to do an elf craft. And we're going to see if we can find where Ginger is hiding in the museum. And finally, we're going to have someone come in and is going to talk about Kwanzaa, which is celebrated the week after Christmas. So through the whole month of December, we're going to be looking at holiday traditions and how they're celebrated in the Augusta area and in Georgia. So I invite you to come join us. And I thank you for joining us today. And y'all have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving.